Hello and welcome to the 10th episode of my Beagle standard build log. I'm Dieter and this video will be about further finalizing the printer. So that's tightening the hot end, mounting it to the effector plate, etc, etc. I don't know how far we come in this video, but I try to get as far as possible. So without any further delay, I would say let's get started. First thing we're going to do now is mount the 40mm fan to the Mechatronics faceplate. This is the fan, this is the plate. I just checked the spinning direction, and if the fan spins, it blows air that way, so towards the sticker. So this should go down, and we mount it like this. We're going to mount it with a couple of M3x16 screws and nuts. Next we will install the Mechatronics electronic board to the same faceplate. Again using M3x16 screws and a couple of nuts. Right, that's looking good. Now we plug in this little fan to the plus 12 volt header on the board, just as I did with the two extruder fans, which is something different than I said in the previous video, but I had a little discussion with the Rubber World guys and they advised me to use the plus 12 volt headers. So the fans on the hot end and on the board are spinning all the time as soon as you switch on the power. Now we install this faceplate back to the printer, like this. Now next thing we need to do is tidy up this cable mess, so it looks nice and we don't get any errors or whatever. So let's see. So what we now need to do is to connect the power wires, which come underneath the base here, to the power supply, which is here. And let me see. Yeah. I can lift it out because it's not quite attached yet. So now I can reach the connectors. We have 3 screw terminals for the positive wires and 3 for the negative wires. I already connected my power indication LED to one pair, so now we need to connect the other pairs to the remaining connectors. First we're going to wire the wires through the frame so they come up here. Right, so they're there. Now we just have to put them on the terminals here. Let me put this out of the way. So that looks good for now, except that I'm going to change the extruder because I just had a discussion with Rubber World guys, and the way I am running the Bowden tube now is very inefficient. It gives me a long tube, which means a lot of retraction, which means less speed. So I'm going to twist the extruder a little bit so the Bowden tube goes like this. As you can see, I rotated the extruder by 90 degrees, so the filament now runs more horizontally through the extruder, which means that we can have a shorter Bowden tube here, which is good for the retraction rate and speed in which we can print and extrude. Now the guys over at Rubber Build told me one more little trick about the extruder, which is that the gap here is a little bit too big for 1.75mm filament to bridge, so it will buckle on the load. So what they do is they put a little bit of PTFE tube between the pneum fitting and the wheels here, which is maybe not the nicest solution, but it works for them, so I'm going to do it as well. I've got a little bit of PTFE tube here and my pneum fitting here, and let's try and fit it in. Before we start with the thermal tightening, maybe you remember from one of the first episodes that I had a really hard time getting these faceplates on the base of the printer. Turns out my plates were printed on a printer with the scale a little bit off. While this is of course a little bit disappointing, when I wrote the Rubber World guys, I got a really quick answer in return and actually got new faceplates within a day, which was on a freaking Sunday. So I think that's pretty awesome. Now just imagine that I bought a Chinese printer. I don't think I would have gotten any reply at all. So that's actually why you buy a Dutch printer, because you actually get good support. Having said that, now it's really time for the thermal tightening. I got my laptop here, I got it already started up, got pronto face already open, connected. So let's start up the printer. I got power to it now. As you can see, both bed and extruder are nice within room temperature. Now let's switch on the extruder heat. Okay, so now we reach the temperature. Now we grab a 16mm spanner. Then we grab our hot end with that. Then we take a 7mm spanner. Now we tighten the nozzle. That should do. And now we switch off the heat again. Good, so now I tighten the nozzle. It only needs to be like pretty little bit over hand tight. The manual specifies 3 Newton meters, which is about as much force as you can exert with one finger on a small spanner. Well, this is a small spanner, so I tightened it carefully. Now it's just a matter of letting the nozzle cool down, and then we can proceed with getting the hot end into the effector plate actually. So now it's actually pretty much almost safe to the touch. It's about 50 degrees. So now we can proceed with the assembly of the effector plate. For that we need the effector plate top. Now this should go over the cooler block of the hot end, and it should be a tight fit. Well, this is a little bit too tight, I cannot get it in. So what we need to do is grab a little bit of sandpaper and sand this out a little bit so we can squeeze it in. Remember, it should be a very tight fit, so only remove a little bit at a time. Good, so there we have it. Very tight fit. I had to actually sand down the entire inside edge of the top with a Dremel, but now it fits very snug. So now all that's left to do is secure this with 4 M3 by 16 screws, which they go in the little holes here in the top on either side, and they will actually secure the hot end to the top. So let's screw them in. And now we need to tighten this with 4 M2 by 8 screws. The hot end is tightened to the vector plate. Now what's left to do is install the second fan, which should go sticker outwards, so we have a push-pull configuration on the fans. Like this. It should slide in with a little bit of effort. Like, there we go. Now we use a little tie wrap to get all the wires together. Right here at the bottom. So now it's time to install the PTV tube, which is this little tube. And as you can see, it's a little bit too long. That's not a problem. We can cut it to size. First, we insert it into here. Now, this feels good, except for a little play here. I believe I already covered it in the hot end assembly, but if not, what we can do is pull it tight a little bit, insert something thin in between, and then push the PTV tube in a little bit. This is to remove all the last little bit of play that's in here, which aids for the retraction settings, etc. Now we need to find out where our tube should be. And so the tube should be this long. I left a little bit of play, so if we need to cut down on the tube later on, we can do that. And now the PTV tube should also go into the extruder, which is here. The tube is now here, goes from the extruder, the cold end, all the way to here, to the hot end. And it's long enough to actually reach the far end, which is something like here. We need a cable wrap, and we wrap this nice little bundle so everything looks good. This is actually also a good moment to install the top caps, because the top cap for this side has a little groove and notch in it for the cables. So let's see if it fits. What we need to do now is to install this sticker, the heated bed sticker, to the actual bed. Let me grab that. There it is, nice mirror. And we need to install this sticker to the bottom, like this, But once I peel off the backing, it's once on and never go off again. So what we're going to do is first mark out where the sticker should go. Now we carefully peel away the adhesive backing. So now the first part is on. Gently but carefully push it on. And now we just peel away the backing carefully, work our way to the other end. Yeah, looks good. So what we do next is install the bed mounts to the base, and we adjust it for our heated bed. So now all the bed mounts are on. They're still a bit loose, that's okay. Now we just pop on the bed. Now we adjust. Put a couple of M4 washers, nylon washers, in the little cutouts in the mounts. So the bed is offset by a very small amount, which acts as a little bit of insulation between the heated bed and the printed parts, because otherwise in the long run you might get some issues. I think I will glue them down a little bit, just to be sure that they don't fall out when I undo the bed for some reason at one point in time. So the glass bed's now in. I left a little bit of plate because I have my frame already, but if you build a Beagle without a frame, make sure your heated bed is nice and secure within these brackets, because the glass is actually a constructional part of the printer. There's one last thing to do before we can start dialing in the settings, and that is clamping the plate down. And we do this with these little washers and some M4x10 screws. That's it for building the Beagle actually. I think it's pretty much complete now. Next step is calibration. So the calibration will be for next video. So that's it for this video, I would say. Bye.